Oh, and thank you for sharing your picture.
Yes, yeah, I don't have my camera going.
That's quite all right. And what type of teacher are you seeking to become?
Well, I'm interested in STEM,
Okay,
science, technology, engineering, and math.
excellent.
I'm a former economics and math major,
Okay,
and I've had an IT career for over 20 years.
okay, excellent.
So, yeah, I'm ready to take that transition and share experience, and also to have a possible growth path with credentialing and also a possible master's degree. I'd probably be
Perfect.
interested in a single subject
Okay,
and master's program.
excellent. And Alma, I see you entered in the chat, elementary teacher, fourth or fifth grade. Wonderful. And Ashley, what about you? Ashley, if you're speaking, you might be on mute. Oh, there you go. Interested in middle school. Okay, excellent. Okay, well, we'll get started, and then as others join, we can always fill them in. But what I'd like to share with you all today is just kind of the different ways that you can earn a teaching credential in California. Similar to how you're pursuing a bachelor's degree, there's different options available. You could either go to a four-year institution as a freshman, or you can go to a community college and then transfer. Both options allow you to earn a bachelor's degree. It's just a different route or pathway that you're taking. It's the same for teacher credential programs. So before we get into the pathways, I did want to just share with you briefly that every state has a different agency that oversees credentials. In California, the agency that oversees credentialing is called the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, or CTC. And they outline all of the requirements that is needed to become a teacher. And they're listed here on this lower portion of the infographic. Now, where Cal Poly comes into this list of requirements is number 6. We are a commission-approved teacher preparation program. So when you come to Cal Poly Pomona, you will fulfill item 6. And then once you complete our program will assist you in completing number 7. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail into these requirements, or rather, I'm going to cover them as we go through the slides. So I'm not going to go over them now, but I will as we progress through the slides. But once you complete all of those 7 items, your credential is issued by the state of California. It doesn't come from the university where you complete your credential program. It comes from the state of California. And we just assist you in completing all of these 7 items so that you can be issued a credential by the state of California. Now, there's something you'll want to consider when you decide on a teacher credential program. There's 4 basic questions. What do I want to teach? Do I need to major in something specific? What are teacher credential pathways? And when do I apply to a credential program? And so starting with the first question, when you ask yourself, what do I want to teach? You'll want to consider what grade levels are you interested in teaching? In California, there's different grade levels that you can teach. You can teach at the elementary grade level, which is typically grades TK through grade 6. You can teach at the middle school level, which is typically, middle school and high school, which is typically grades 7 through 12. I apologize, high school is not listed there, but middle school and high school is typically grades 7 through 12. Special education, which is kindergarten through the 12th grade and up to the age of 22. And with special education teaching, you can be assigned to either resource rooms, special day classes or SDC, special schools, home and hospital settings, correctional facilities. There's lots of different settings that you can teach in with a special education credential. The other thing you'll want to consider is, what subject areas am I interested in teaching? Do I want to teach just one subject? Do I just want to teach math? Do I just want to teach physics? Do I just want to teach Spanish? Or do I want to teach multiple subjects? Math, history, science, reading. You'll want to kind of ask yourself those 2 questions. And then once you do, that's going to help you determine which type of credential you pursue. So the multiple subject credential in California authorizes you to teach all of the subjects in what's called self-contained classrooms. Self-contained classrooms are classrooms where there's one teacher and you teach the same group of students all of the subjects in one day. Typically what you find at the elementary grade levels. Now, if a self-contained classroom is at the 10th grade or the 11th grade, your credential will allow you to teach that. And even in classes organized primarily for adults. But most self-contained classrooms in California are at the elementary grade levels, which is why we say the multiple subject credential is typically if you want to teach at the elementary level. The single subject credential will authorize you to teach one subject in departmentalized classrooms. And departmentalized classrooms are classrooms where there's one teacher and you teach one subject to a different group of students every hour or every period, similar to what you may have experienced at the middle school and or high school levels. But your credential actually authorizes you to teach preschool grades K through 12 and in classes organized primarily for adults, as long as the classes are departmentalized. Now in California, most departmentalized classrooms are at the middle school and high school levels. And then lastly, the education specialist credential allows you to teach the subject area of your credential to students in preschool grades K through 12 and up to the age of 22, to students with either mild to moderate support needs or extensive support needs. So once you have those 2 questions answered, this will help narrow what type of credential you will pursue. Now, another common question that we get from our applicants is, do I need to major in something specific? Now, in California, you can major in any subject area and pursue a credential, as long as the bachelor's degree comes from a regionally accredited college or university. And Cal Poly Pomona is regionally accredited. So you can major in sociology, you can major in business, you can major in psychology. You don't necessarily have to major in education or liberal studies to become a teacher. So just as an example, you can major in, or let me back up a little bit. You can major in the same area as the type of credential you want to pursue. So you can major in English, and you want to pursue the single subject English credential, or you can major in math and pursue a single subject math credential. So it can match. And in some cases, when your degree matches the credential, you could qualify for subject matter for the credential, and you might not have to take a state exam. I don't know if any of you have heard of the CSET, Alma, William, or Ashley. In some cases, you have to take the CSET. However, if your major matches the type of credential you're pursuing, you might not have to take the CSET for a credential. Oh, good. Thank you, William. So that's something to keep in mind as you determine what you major in. Now, in other cases, let me go back, actually. So when you major in the same subject area, it's kind of what I said before, you qualify for subject matter. Other ways that you can qualify for subject matter is if you have what's called a commission-approved subject matter preparation program. And Cal Poly has several of our undergraduate programs. We title them pre-credential. And when you complete those programs, you can also meet subject matter and not have to take the CSET. So when you transfer to a four-year institution, you might want to inquire if your major has a pre-credential track or option, because in some ways that'll benefit you and you won't have to take the CSET. Now, if you decide to major in something different from the type of credential you want to pursue, let's say you major in psychology, but you want to pursue the multiple subject credential to be an elementary school teacher, you can do that. Or you can major in sociology and pursue a single subject credential. Or you can major in early childhood studies and pursue the education specialist credential. You have that option. However, when your major doesn't match the credential you're pursuing, then you might have to take the CSET for the credential. So again, there's not a specific credential to become a teacher. I'm sorry, there's not a specific major to become a teacher. But if your major is different, then you may have to take the state exam. So that's also something to consider when you pursue a teacher credential program. Now, there are other options if your major doesn't match that you can meet subject matter. And I don't want to get too into this because I don't want you to get confused. Once you transfer to your four-year institution, here at Cal Poly, I assist students with the application requirements for a teacher credential program. I can go over subject matter competency in more detail with you based on the major that you're majoring in. But this is a requirement for the credential, and I can help you figure out if you need to take the CSET or if you meet subject matter with your major or with coursework. So all of that is in your future, but I think right now your main focus is determining a major, determining what age group of students you want to teach, the subject area, and then determining on what you want to major in. Now, teacher credential pathways are similar to, kind of like as I mentioned at the beginning, pursuing a bachelor's degree. One is not necessarily better than the other, but they are different. And with credential pathways, you can complete what's called an integrated program. This is a combined credential and bachelor's program where you earn your credential and bachelor's in 4 years or in 2 years if you're a junior transfer. There's credential only programs. If you do a credential only program, those are typically offered as post-baccalaureate. So you need to do your bachelor's first and then pursue the credential program. There's also combined credential and master's programs where you earn the credential and the master's. And then if you complete just a credential only program and you want to come back and earn a master's, you can do that as well. So again, different pathways. One is not necessarily better than the other. They're just different in what is included in each of those programs. So at Cal Poly Pomona, we do offer an integrated program. It's a combined credential and bachelor's degree. And this allows you to major in either liberal studies or early childhood studies and pursue the education specialist credential in either mild to moderate support needs or extensive support needs. And you can apply to this program as a freshman, or if you're a junior transfer, you can enter the integrated program and complete the bachelor's and this special education credential. Our credential only programs require a bachelor's degree to be admitted. And we have the 3 types of credential programs offered at Cal Poly Pomona. We have the education specialist, mild to moderate support needs, which is 45 units, extensive support needs, which is also 45 units, the multiple subject credential, which is 42 units, and the single subject credential, which is 36 units. Now, these programs can be completed in 3 to 5 semesters, full-time attendance, depending on the program. Obviously, the education specialist credentials are more units, so it's going to take longer than the single subject, which is only 36 units. But you can do that, just the credential only. Another pathway that we have is the combined credential and master's programs, where you can combine a Master's of Arts in Education in either curriculum and instruction or special education with any of our teacher credential programs. And the Masters of Arts in Education are 31 units on top of the credential units. And the combined credential and master's programs also requires a bachelor's degree for admittance. And the time it takes to complete the master's with the credential depends in the sense that students can either focus on their credential coursework first and then tackle the master's courses, or they can work on their master's courses concurrently with the credential courses. And depending on which option you choose will determine the time frame. If you do the credential first and then do the master's will take 1 to 2 years after your credential courses. If you work on them concurrently, you can complete the master's in 1 additional semester after the credential. And we also have part-time attendance available for both of those programs. And then we have master's only programs. those programs require a bachelor's degree and a valid preliminary teaching credential for admittance. And again, we have the same options, the Masters of Arts in Education, curriculum and instruction, or special education, and those are 31 units. And then the fourth question, which we often get from students, is when do I apply to a credential program? And depending on the type of pathway that you select will determine when you apply. So for our integrated programs, you can apply to Cal Poly Pomona as a freshman or as a junior transfer. And then you would rely on Cal State Apply's application deadlines. So our fall 2024 application deadline is November 30th. So that's coming up if you want to apply as a freshman or as a junior transfer. If you decide to do the credential only, earn your bachelor's first, then apply to the credential only or the combined credential and master's program, you will apply as a post-baccalaureate student, meaning you will either have already finished your bachelor's and apply to a credential program, or you can apply in your last semester of your undergraduate studies to the credential program. In our credential program, we have different deadlines than the November 30th Cal State Apply application. The November 30th is typically for those applying for a bachelor's degree. When you apply to credential only or the combined program, our application deadlines, we have 3 admitting terms in the year that you can apply. You can start in the spring, summer, or fall. So again, it just depends on which pathway you're selecting to earn the credential. Now, this infographic here is just to kind of give you a broad overview of how to earn your credential. So for those of you who are at Rio Hondo, you're working on your associate's degree to transfer, you'll want to complete the requirements to transfer to a 4-year university to earn the bachelor's. If you've already are admitted to a 4-year institution, you've already transferred, then you'll want to complete your bachelor's degree program and maintain at least an overall GPA. We recently updated our minimum GPA requirements to apply to a credential program at Cal Poly. You need a minimum of a 2.5. I know the slide says 2.67, but it's actually a minimum of 2.5. So you want to make sure that you do well in your undergraduate program so you meet the minimum GPA requirement to apply to a credential program. Now, if your undergraduate GPA falls below a 2.5, you can still apply to a credential program, but you have to submit additional items with your program application in which you explain the circumstances that contributed to the inability to meet the minimum GPA requirement. So we always tell students, aim for 2.5 or above. Then you don't have to submit that additional essay. But if your GPA should fall below that, just know that it's going to require an additional essay when you apply. We follow the curve around. After your bachelor's, you'll apply to a credential program, and you'll want to review the program application requirements for wherever you apply. If you intend to apply to Cal Poly Pomona, which I hope so, we have our program application requirements on our website, and then the Cal State Apply also has the requirements when applying to the credential program. Once you're admitted to a credential program, similar to your undergraduate studies, you'll follow your program plan. You'll want to maintain a GPA of 3.0, and you'll complete your clinical practice or student teaching and all the requirements needed for the credential. Once you complete the credential, there are some additional requirements that's needed, but you'll get all this information once you're in a program, such as CPR certification and the RECA if it's required. And then if we follow that curve around, once your credential is issued, you can apply for teaching positions on edjoin.org. And then at the end, congratulations, you can now teach in your own classroom. So again, that's just kind of a brief overview of how to get from where you are, wherever you fall on this infographic, to teaching in your own classroom. Now, for those of you who are working to transfer, there are minimum CSU eligibility requirements to transfer. And depending on when you transfer, you have to have these completed at a certain point. So for those of you who are applying for fall enrollment, fall 2024. You'll need to have all of this completed by the spring prior. So by the end of spring 2024, you would need to have all of this completed in order to be considered for fall 24 admission. And if you're applying for spring admission, you would need all of this required by the summer before. So those are just two things to keep in mind depending on when you're planning on transferring. The CSU eligibility requirements do include, you have to be in good academic standing at the last institution. You must have a minimum 2.0 GPA in transferable coursework. You must have at least a minimum of 60 transferable units, semester units, or 90 quarter units. And 30 of the 60 units, 45 if you're using quarter, must be in general education or your GEs. And you have to complete the Golden 4. And for those of you not familiar, the Golden 4 I listed on the right side. You need your A1 oral communication, you need your A2 English composition, you need your A3 critical thinking, and you need your B4 mathematics or quantitative reasoning. So if you haven't yet, take a look at where you stand regarding the CSU eligibility requirements. If you're missing anything, then that will be your goal, to focus on, okay, I haven't taken B4, I need to take that, this semester or next semester because I want to transfer for fall. Or, I've got everything, I'm just going to continue with my last semester at Rio Hondo and then I'll transfer. So again, just some guidance or suggestions for you as you work on transferring. You always want to start early. So, continue with your studies, look ahead if you can, plan ahead if you need to make any changes or adjustments. And it's okay if you have to. Sometimes our students want to apply for a certain term, but they get delayed. That's okay. Just have a plan in place so that you know where you stand, what your next goal is, any deadlines if you need to meet that goal, and then just keep working one thing at a time until you achieve your goal. So I would encourage you to continue with your studies and transfer to a four-year university, hopefully Cal Poly. Decide on a major if you haven't already done so. Keeping in mind that if you major in something that matches the type of credential you're pursuing, you might not have to take a state exam. Or if you do major in something different, that's okay. What that means for you is you'll need to prepare and take that state exam. The state exam is one way to meet the subject matter competency, which is the third bullet point on here. And then I'm going to talk about the basic skills requirement in the next slide, but that's another thing you might want to keep an eye on, of how do you plan to meet that. And then you also want to keep an eye out for opportunities where you can work or interact with the youth. One of the admission requirements for a credential program is early field experience. You need at least 45 hours. Now, if you don't have those done yet, don't panic. You don't have to do them now. You can wait till you get to Cal Poly. It's just something you'll need to have completed when you apply to a credential program. So just keep an open mind. Some of you may already have experience with students. You may already be coaching, or you might already be tutoring. So it might not be something you need to seek out, but for those who don't have that, that's just something to keep in mind. With the basic skills requirement. So this is another state requirement for teachers. And with the basic skills requirement, they're looking at your math, reading, and writing proficiencies. And there's different options available that you can meet those proficiency. On this slide, you should see 8 different options. Any of these options can be used for basic skills. You can still, if you notice in option 1, you can still take and pass the CBEST, the California Basic Educational Skills Test. Or option 2 is you can pass the CSET multiple subjects plus the writing skills CSET, and passage of those exams demonstrates or meets the basic skills requirement. Option 3, if some of you either participated in the CSU early assessment program or took the CSU placement examinations in high school and achieved a qualifying score, you could use that for the basic skills requirement. For those of you who may have taken the SAT or ACT exams, and achieved a qualifying score, you could use that for basic skills. Option 5 is for anyone who may have taken College Board Advanced Placement examinations, AP exams in high school for math or English, and achieved a score of 3 or higher. You can use that for basic skills. Option 6 is you can pass a basic skills exam from another state. Option 7, you can use coursework taken at the community college or university level. So I'm going to come back to talk about option 8, but if we go back to the CSU eligibility requirements, some of the courses that you can use to meet the English and or reading requirement can come from your A3, your critical thinking, as long as you earned a B or better in the course. They'll accept a B minus. Anything below a B minus, a C or D, unfortunately, that doesn't qualify. So in some cases, whatever course you took for critical thinking could possibly meet the reading or writing proficiencies for the basic skills. And the same thing for your B4, the math. If you took quantitative reasoning, statistics, there's some other math courses and earned a grade of B or better, you can use that for the basic skills requirement. So if you haven't yet completed the Golden 4, keep in mind that you just want to do well in those courses, a B or higher, so that they could possibly meet the reading, writing, or math proficiencies for the basic skills exam. And then the last option is a combination of exam and coursework. So let's say you meet your critical thinking course meets reading and writing, but let's say for math, let's say you earned a C. So you can use your courses for reading and writing and then take just the math portion of the CBEST or any of the combinations listed here. You can do that with option 8. So those are just some things to keep in mind. If the courses that you have at Rio, let's say they don't meet or they're different, they don't qualify for this, that's okay. When you're at Cal Poly, there may be some Cal Poly courses that you might be able to use. But you do have to meet basic skills in order to be admitted to a credential program. So again, that's just something you want to keep in mind as you're progressing through your courses, or maybe searching for your SAT scores that you took in high school, or searching for your AP exams, or any of the other options that might pertain to you. Now, one thing I did want to mention, here at Cal Poly Pomona, we allow our undergraduates with junior or senior standing to begin taking credential foundation courses during their undergraduate studies. You're not required to do so. These are not prerequisites. This is just if you want to get ahead, you have that option should you decide to take advantage of it. And I listed the credential foundation courses there on the screen. If you don't want to take these as an undergrad, you don't have to. That's perfectly fine. You can always take them once admitted to a credential program. But I just wanted you to be aware that that is an option. And if you do these courses as an undergrad, it reduces the number of semesters after you graduate to complete the credential. So again, it just allows you to get ahead and complete the credential a little bit faster. And then I did want to just mention briefly before we open it up for some Q&A that at Cal Poly, we have what's called added authorizations. And an added authorization is an authorization that you can add onto a credential. So you can add it to the multiple subject credential, add it to a single subject credential, or add it to an education specialist credential. And these added authorizations allow you to teach in either additional settings or additional subject area. So we have 3 added authorizations. We have the agriculture specialist, we have the adaptive physical education added authorization, and then we have the bilingual added authorization. And we offer the bilingual added authorization for Spanish or Chinese, Mandarin or Cantonese. Now, these are not standalone credentials. You have to get the multiple subject, single subject, or education specialist credential either concurrently with the added authorizations, or you can do the credentials first and then work on the added authorizations. And added authorizations are not required. This is only if you want these additional authorizations on your teacher credential. Now, I hope this presentation has been clear and not confusing, but please let me know if you have any questions And I'm more than happy to go over any of the slides or address any questions that I may not have included in the presentation. Any questions?
Thank you for being here. Right now is the time for transfer. The CSU, the UCs, everything. The applications are open. So
Yes.
right now is the time to ask, especially if you're getting ready to do that application. If you're interested in going to Cal Poly Pomona, it sounds like they have a great program, and they have different opportunities and different pathways for you to become that teacher that you want to be. So if you're interested in them, don't hesitate to ask some questions right now, especially because it is that time to transfer right now. So if you want to put it in the chat or anything else like that, you can go ahead and put it in. And I did record it. So Jeanne, if you can please share this PowerPoint with me, because
Of course.
Fridays technically is a lot of our students tend to work. So
Okay.
someone already asked me like, I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it, but I'm interested in going. And so I would love to pass down your information to them.
Yes, and I speak with current Cal Poly Pomona students, but I also meet with students who are not yet at Cal Poly. So transfer students from Mount Sac, Citrus, Rio Hondo. Some students I speak to, they're already at, an undergraduate program at, Laverne or Fullerton. Call me, email me. We can always also schedule a Zoom session. So if you want to speak with me more specifically about your situation or your educational goals, I'm more than happy to do that. Of those of you who are on the call, how many of you are considering transferring next fall for fall 2024 and are working on the Cal State Apply application that's due November 30th? I see William. I will call and I will follow up on concurrent credential master's programs. Wonderful, William. Yes, please call me anytime. I'm going to just take you really briefly to Cal Poly's website, because I also want to share with some of you, if you haven't already done so, you might want to consider reaching out to our Office of Outreach for pre-admission advising. You can do this in person on campus, or if you want to do it through Zoom, but they meet with all types of students. You don't have to be a current student, but sometimes they might help answer questions about courses you've taken. Maybe, am I ready to transfer? Should I wait to transfer for a later term? And I'm also going to put this in our chat. So this is our transfer application checklist. There's also, when you scroll down, you'll see the application fall 24, October 1st through November 30th. And again, you have to have all admission requirements completed by the end of spring 24 to be considered for fall 24 admission. You click on requirements, the Cal Poly Pomona eligibility, CSU eligibility requirements are listed on this page. When you scroll down, you'll see the golden 4. You'll also notice the minimum requirements, which we talked about in the slide presentation. But let me show you, and the other thing I wanted to mention, which I didn't have in the presentation, is in some cases we do have high demand majors or impacted, and you can click on each of the colleges. It'll list anything that's high demand, and in some cases they might have, they want you to have certain courses completed prior to transferring. In some cases, you'll click on a major and or a college, there might not be any of those preferred courses. College of Education for our early childhood studies major prefers if you have these completed. And then if you click on College of Engineering, they're all of our different majors. If you're majoring in English, College of Science, Math, they prefer if you have Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. And you can, if you're not sure which course at Rio Hondo meets these, you can go to assist.org and see which courses are articulated. You may have already taken these, so you might not need to do anything additionally. And then we also have on the left-hand side our impacted majors. And then same thing, you can scroll down and see if there's anything that's impacted. And again, they do list the preferred courses, please, I think that just helps them when they decide their admission decisions. And then let me see I think it's the admission advisor.
Just a reminder for the students here, if say you're interested in, like, for example, some of those, we'll say the math courses, and maybe Rio Hondo may take them, or maybe Rio Hondo may have them. Some of those classes, reach out to your counselor, Alyssa. You do have a designated counselor with her. So she's really good at looking at assist and everything else like that. It can be a little bit complicated transferring over because some of the terms are a little bit different. But don't be afraid to, like, reach out to her, let her know what you want to do and all, because that was really good, that what she showed, because it states specifically of what classes. Not a lot of universities have that, so I was impressed to actually see that, because I have worked at a lot of universities and it was very, very detailed. So thank you, Pomona.
Yes. And there are, I know some courses, like it might not be the same at Rio Hondo, but I know at Mount SAC, there's some early childhood courses that are, you can take at Mount SAC to transfer to Cal Poly, and they're very difficult to get into at Mount SAC. So you don't necessarily have to complete them. We recommend you complete them. But in some cases, we've had students tell us, like, if I wait, I won't be able to transfer for like a year. So they transfer anyway, and we work it out, we figure it out. But it's just something, if you have time in your schedule and you can take those, that might be something you want to consider. And then I did put in the chat the pre-admission advising. This is with Cal Poly Pomona. And again, you can do, if you scroll down, you can do in-person or virtual. And when you click down here to book your appointment, it'll take you to another area. And then you can click on. So I know right now in October, there's nothing available. Usually there'll be green squares over dates, but you can move ahead. And I know it doesn't look like there's anything available, but they update this daily and weekly. So check back if there's nothing there. And then the other thing you could do, if you still don't see anything, you could always reach out. You can ask a question. I think they allow you to submit like online, like in an email format, or you can call the office directly. And they work again with currently not Cal Poly Pomona students. They're there to assist students who are looking to transfer to Cal Poly. So that's another resource for you all. I see from William, you have to leave. Oh, William, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy you're here. He might have already left the call. Yeah. But for those of you who are still on this, do you have any questions or anything about credentialing that you have for me that you'd like to ask?
I have no questions at the moment, but say
Okay.
I did have questions that I think about later. You said I can always call, right? The number you provided?
Yes, and I'm also going to put my phone number and email here in the chat.
Okay.
You can call me or email me anytime. And then if it's a question that maybe I can't answer or I need to consult with another office on campus, I'll connect you with that individual in the other office so that you can get your question answered.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And one other thing I did want to mention, which I kindly touched briefly on our, when we were talking about majoring in a certain area, there are two majors. Let me show you. So for single subject, can you see the Cal Poly's website? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So with our single subject areas, they're listed here on this slide. You'll notice that some of them have an asterisk next to them. Those are all of our programs that have pre-credential pathways. There's two areas that you definitely have to do the pre-credential pathway in order to not have to take the state exam. If you major in physical education, you'll need to select the pre-credential pathway. There's two options. You can do non-pre-credential or pre-credential. You'll definitely want to do pre-credential. Because if you do the other pathway, the state doesn't recognize that other pathway as meeting a state requirement, and that you'll have to take the exam. So, and then the same thing for social science. If you major in history because you want to teach history, make sure you check the pre-credential pathway if you don't want to take the state exam. If you don't mind taking the state exam, you can do the non-pre-credential pathway within history. But those two options, you have to do pre-credential. Some of the other subject areas, it's a little bit, the state recognizes either option for the credential, and you don't have to take the exam. It's just those two subject areas I wanted to mention. For multiple
That's actually
subjects.
really good.
Oh,
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
That's actually really good, because if you do this pathway, what she's talking about, taking those tests can cost a lot of money, and everything costs out of money. For example,
Yes.
I am still struggling on passing that RECA test myself. So, you know, it comes out to like $500 because you're paying per subset. So if you can take this pathway, I did liberal studies, so all my testing was involved. So if you can take advantage of this, take advantage of it, because it will save you money. Of course, terms and conditions to life, I'm pretty sure they have to get like A's and B's, right?
You have to, I think you have an overall GPA of 2.75 in those courses. Oops. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind when you do those courses. But your advisors will remind you of that when you're in those pathways, that in order to qualify, make sure you do well in your courses. The other thing I wanted to mention right now for the multiple subject credential, if you major in liberal studies, your degree qualifies and you don't have to take the CSET. Our early childhood studies program is still in review. So if you major in early childhood studies, you might still have to take the state exams. If our early childhood studies program gets approved, then it'll be the same as liberal studies. You won't have to take the state exam, but as of today, it's not yet approved. So we're working on that, but we, as of now, you may have to take the state exam. Oh, and the other thing too with state exams, right now, I'm going to show you the exam website, which you won't have to think about till later, till after you transfer to your four-year university. But in some cases, the state of California offers waivers where eligible California residents can test for free. Now, this is available through, I think, 2024, but I don't know if they're going to continue to offer these fee waivers. So that's something always to ask when if you do have to take an exam, are there fee waivers? Because you might not have to pay. Or if the fee waivers are no longer offered, then you might have to. So right now, I tell students, it's testing is for free. Go on their website, and that's not a cost you have to bear right now.
Well, look at that. My good news of the RECA. That's my test that I'm struggling with.
Yes. So when you register, if it's waived,
all this good news coming up right here. That thank you. I'm even learning something new.
Yes. And then the RECA is changing. The way it's currently offered will be they'll do that through June 30th, 2025, and then after 2025, they'll have a different type of exam. It's still required, but it'll be different from the way it's currently offered. So there's always changes when it comes to credentialing in California. If the state makes a change, programs have to adjust and maybe change their programs to meet the state standards. So you kind of just have to be flexible because the state does make changes every so often. And we do our best to inform students of those changes so that you can plan accordingly. But unfortunately, it's not always set in stone. Ashley or Alexia, do you guys have any questions? Oh, you just put in the chat. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'm going to hit stop recording.
Okay.